Hello YouTube, welcome to another Season 6 Patch 5.24 guide. In this guide, we're going to be covering Viktor. Now Viktor hasn't really changed much. The last time he changed a lot was back in patch 5.16 when they changed his hex core. They changed it so now it's a scaling item and it's really good later on now. He is a bit weaker early on because of it, but now has a lot more AP at level 18. Viktor is a champion that's pretty weak when he's engaged on, but he can offer a ton in fights and really go to town on an enemy team. He's a great team fighter. In this guide, we're going to cover Viktor's pros and cons, his masteries, runes, summoners, his ability leveling order, his item build, and some general info and tips as well. So let's get right into it, starting with his pros and cons, starting with his pros. His first pro being he has very high AoE burst damage. His ultimate is a storm which has a pretty decent AoE radius, and his E is also an AoE on top of it. You can use your E to swipe it through a whole team if you angle it correctly, and your storm you can drag around, making sure you're hitting as many targets as possible during the fight. Another pro Viktor has is that he has an AoE stun. With the way his W works, he can drop it near a team. Anybody that goes in after duration is stunned. People that are inside for a while are also very slowed, and they have trouble getting out, so usually they get stunned in the process. Since he is an AoE based champion, if he can get the stun off on multiple people, then drag his E through them and get his ult off on top of them on top of it, he will do absolutely devastating damage. Because of all of his AoE, he's also very strong at farming and tower defending. If the enemy team is pushing into the tower, he can simply use his AoE abilities to wipe out minion waves instantly. He can also obviously do this when farming to get waves really fast and then go into the jungle and clear more. He is a champion that if played correctly, he can get a lot of farm very fast. Viktor also gains AP per level from his passive, which means he just keeps getting stronger as the game goes on. With the way we build Viktor in this guide, we get the perfect hex core as fast as possible, which gives him more and more AP very fast. Viktor's last pro is that his E has no cast time and can be used while running for surprise bursts. Viktor can make himself look very vulnerable while running away and then get his E off while running away, turn around and use his complete combo to completely devastate and surprise an enemy. Now although Viktor has a lot of pros, he also has a cons, which is why he's not a tier 1 champion. The first con being he has mana issues. A lot of his abilities cost a lot of mana, and if he's unable to get blue, he can have a very hard time in lane depending on who he's against. Another con that Viktor has is that he's very squishy. He goes for a high AP damage build due to the fact that he can do mass AoE damage to the enemy team, which means he's not that tanky. On top of this, Viktor has very low mobility. Every skill he has is generally for dealing damage except for his W, which is a stun, so he's not able to escape that often. Because of this as well, he's also very reliant on landing his skill shots. If he's unable to get his stun off effectively, he may just get deleted over and over in mid lane. Now we look at his masteries, which are 12 ferocity and 18 cunning. And ferocity, we get 2% increased ability damage, followed by feast, which is killing a unit, restores 20 health on a 25-second cooldown. Then we get Vampirism, which is 2% lifesteal and spell vamp. And finally, Oppressor, which is 2.5% increased damage to targets with impaired movement. In Cunning, we start by getting Savagery, which is 5 bonus damage to minions. Then we get Secret Stash, which is potions and elixirs, last 10% longer, plus you get Biscuits. Merciless is 5% more damage to champions below 40% health. We follow this up by getting Dangerous Game, which is champion kills and assists, restore 5% of your missing health and mana. Then we get Precision, which is 5 plus 0.5 per level armor pen, and 3 plus 0.3 per level magic pen. And then lastly, we get the most overpowered ability in the tree, which is Thunderlord's Decree, which is third attack or spell on an enemy champion calls down a lightning strike, which deals percentage of your AP and AD. As for his runes, we get 9 greater marks of magic penetration, then 9 greater glyphs of scaling cooldown reduction, which is equivalent to 15% cooldown reduction at 18. We then get 9 greater seals of scaling health, and 3 greater quintessences of ability power. We take the 9 greater marks of magic penetration and the 3 greater quintessences of ability power, so we're doing as much damage as possible. The 9 greater glyphs of scale and cooldown reduction also help with this, since we can do more spells more often. Since we didn't take the magic resist from our glyphs, we needed to go for the greater seals of scaling health, so at least we have a lot of health in lane, considering we don't have the magic resist. If you were against an AD champion in mid, you may want to take the armor from your seals instead though. For our summoners, we take Flash and Cleanse. Flash is used for chasing, escaping, and repositioning. Viktor is very squishy and has no built-in escape, so Flash is 100% necessary. Cleanse is really strong on Viktor, considering how weak he is against teams with lots of CC. I find myself taking Cleanse on Viktor more often than not, but of course against a team with no CC, you would take Ignite instead. In the gameplay portion of this guide, you will notice that we are against a Twisted Fate, and the Cleanse is very good against his gold card. Now we're going to look at each of Viktor's abilities, starting with his passive, which is called Glorious Evolution. Viktor starts each game with an exclusive prototype hex core, which permanently occupies one of his item slots. For 1000 gold, Viktor can upgrade his hex core to increase its bonuses and grant him 1 evolution point, which he can use to augment one of his basic abilities. Once he augments all of his basic abilities, Viktor automatically augments his ultimate ability, Chaos Storm. So the first one you start out with is called the Prototype Hex Core. It grants 1 AP and 10 mana per level. The next one you get grants 3 AP per level as well as 15 mana and gives you 1 evolution point. Next, it grants 6 AP per level and 20 mana per level and also gives you 1 evolution point. And the final one, which is called Perfect Hex Core, it grants 10 AP per level, 25 mana per level, and another evolution point. This is a pretty cool passive because it's a unique item for Viktor as well. It also makes you have a lot of AP at late game. Now we look at Viktor's first basic ability, which is called Siphon Power. Viktor shields himself for 2.5 seconds, deals magic damage to the target enemy, and modifies his next basic attack within 3.5 seconds to deal between 20 and 210 based on level, plus 100% AD, 50% AP, magic damage. The shield is between 30 and 110 plus 20% AP, and the magic damage is between 40 and 120 plus 20% AP. As for the augment, which is called Turbocharge, Viktor instantly gains 30% bonus movement speed for 2.5 seconds after using Siphon Power. The range of this ability is 600, the speed is 2000, the cost is between 45 and 65 based on rank, and the cooldown goes from 10 to 4 based on the rank as well. Now this is your second best basic ability. The shield is nice for trading damage and it does nice damage as well, and the cooldown goes down with rank. However, it is not as good as your E. This is also true for the augment as well. The E's augment is much nicer, but this is your second best augment. Now we jump into Viktor's W, which is called Gravity Field. Viktor deploys a gravitational imprisonment device at the target location, which arms after a brief delay. For 4 seconds, the trap slows all enemies that pass through its field, persisting for 0.25 seconds after leaving. Whilst under the trap's effects, enemies generate a stack every 0.5 seconds. At 3 stacks, enemies are knocked down and stunned for 1.5 seconds. The augment, which is called Implosion, units stunned by Gravity Field are dragged into the center. The slow goes from 28 to 44% based on rank, the range is 700, the cost is 65 mana, and the cooldown goes from 17 to 13 seconds based on the rank as well. Now this is a good stun, however it is your worst ability as only the slow changes with its rank. The augment is also not that great as well, so it's also the last thing that you do augment. Now we look at Viktor's E, which is called Death Ray. It's his main ability we level, and it is also the best thing we augment. Viktor uses his synthetic arm to fire an energy beam down the target path, dealing magic damage to every enemy it hits. The arm can fire in any direction from any point within range and does not interrupt Viktor's previous orders. As for the augment, which is called Aftershock, an explosion follows Death Ray's wake, dealing the same magic damage once more. Enemies already hit by Death Ray take 40% damage from the secondary explosion. The magic damage is between 70 and 250 plus 70% AP. The range is 525, the speed is 1350, the cost goes from 70 to 110 mana, and the cooldown goes down from 13 to 9 based on the rank. Now this is his ability with the best AP ratio, so it does tons of damage, and it can also AoE if dragged through multiple enemies. This is augmented first because it also adds a secondary 40% damage if it also hits the same target. Lastly, we have Viktor's ultimate, which is called Chaos Storm. So the first cast, Viktor conjures an arcane singularity at the target location, dealing magic damage to every enemy it hits and interrupting channeled abilities. The singularity remains active for 7 seconds afterwards, dealing magic damage to all nearby enemies every 0.5 seconds. As for the second cast, Viktor directs the singularity to the target location. Once the singularity damages an enemy champion, it automatically follows them until the target dies or escapes it. The singularity moves faster depending on its proximity to Viktor, but always moves at maximum speed when moving towards him. As for the augment, Chaos Storm moves 20% faster. The magic damage is between 150 and 350 plus 55% AP, and the magic damage per half second is between 15 and 45 plus 10 AP. The range is 700, the cost is 100 mana, and the cooldown goes from 120 to 110 to 100. Now this is a great ultimate because it can hit multiple people at the same time, and if they sit in it, they take more and more damage as the time goes on. If used with your W, you can get off the full duration and completely melt people. This also makes Viktor a strong pick against something like a Misfortune or Nunu, as he can cancel their channeled ultimate. Now that we've covered each ability, we're going to talk about his ability leveling order. So first, you take Chaos Storm, which is your ultimate, whenever you can, meaning 6, 11, and 16. Your first basic ability you level is your Death Ray, which is your E. You take it at level 2, and it is main leveling priority, so you take it at 2, 3, 5, 7, and 9. You also augment this ability first, as it can add an extra 40% damage onto a target. Next is your Siphon Power, which is your Q. You take it at level 1, and it is second in leveling priority, so you take it at 1, 8, 10, 12, and 13. This is also the second thing you augment, as it can help you chase enemies. Lastly is Gravity Field, which is your W. You take it at level 4, and it is last in leveling priority, so you take it at 4, 14, 15, 17, and 18. And of course, this is the last thing you augment, as the drag into the center is not that amazing. As for Viktor's item build, we first start by taking a Doran's Ring and health potions. We then rush a Perfect Hex Core to upgrade all of our abilities. Then we get Ionian Boots for some cooldown reduction. We follow this up by getting a Ryalis. Then get a Lich Bane, as it works very well with his attack range. We get a Void Staff to get through any magic resist, and then finally a Zonia's, considering we're really squishy. Some alternatives would be a Rabadon's if you're looking to get mass AP, an Athene's if you're against a magic opponent and you're looking for some more regen, or a Luden's Echo. That pretty much covers everything in this Viktor guide. I would like to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you guys like the video, and I hope to see you guys in the next guide.